Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I recently changed the name of the channel to Psychiatric Exile, but the content is the same. It's all about my hobbies. So far, I've been making videos about anime and animation in general, as well as music and movies. And this video continues my countdown of my top 100 animated films of all time. Last time covered movies 100 to 91, and this week I'm going to cover movies from number 90 to number 81. And wanted to emphasize again, this is a completely subjective exercise. It's about what movies I like the most, and to make that point clear, I'm using the GamePros game rating system. So when I say a movie is 3.5, it means it makes me feel like this, as opposed to this is how a two makes me feel, this is how a five makes me feel. That's all. Don't have to get too serious about it. If you disagree with the list, make feel free to tell me and post your thoughts about where a particular film would rank in your list and what you like and don't like about my ranking and my comments. So this week we start with number 90, which is The Black Cauldron, directed by Ted Berman and Richard Rich. And this is the same team that directed The Fox and the Hound, which was my movie number 100, the one I started this list with. It's a Disney movie released in 1985. I rate it as a 3.5 out of 5. Sword and sorcery type of movie. And some of the main merits of the movie revolved around its artistic achievements. I mean, the art and animation are top notch here. It's probably the best thing Disney had made at this point in well over a decade, maybe 2 decades. And we see young artists taking chances under the Disney moniker. And this movie is darker. It's the first time, I think, in history that CGI was used in an animated movie. The CGI is pretty jarring and noticeable, but points for that. Yeah, they're taking chances. Um, so that's the great, the good, and the bad. The ugly was the studio interference. The studio wasn't happy with the tone of this movie, and they interfere in the editing process. And the result was a movie lost in purgatory, where it wasn't the typical Disney movie, but it wasn't really eh, the vision that the directors had for the movie. So it got caught somewhere in the middle. Number 89 is The Incredibles, directed by Brad Bird, from Pixar, of course, and released in 2004. Another movie that I rate as 3.5 out of 5. And my favorite thing about this movie, and something that actually caught me by surprise, it had that cool uh, 60s TV series, 60s movie spy world feel. That's what it felt like to me, and even the furniture and the stage designs. Sometimes when you were indoors, took me back to that time and that era of spy films. The art and the animation are phenomenal, and these are likable characters. I like the family. I like the antagonists and the secondary characters. Nothing really ugly about it. It's a very good film overall, more than solid. Number 88 is Kung Fu Panda, directed by John Stevenson and Mark Osborne from DreamWorks, released in 2008. Another 3.5 movie for me. I like the world build in this movie. I'm a big fan of Jack Black. I like his work, and I think he was phenomenal in this movie. I appreciate the humor and the action. I'm not crazy about the whole franchise. I think it went 4 movies deep, but it's okay, and nothing really ugly about this movie. Number 87, it's a relatively obscure film directed by Zack Snyder, Legend of the Guardians, released in 2010 by Village Roadshow Studio. It's a 3.5 for me. The great here is, I mean, the art, the animation here is, this is one of the best things I've ever seen. It's visually stunning, and it's a movie to, just from that perspective, to watch over and over. Good action sequences. Characters are a little flat, but nothing really ugly about this movie for me. Number 86 is From Up the Poppy Hill, directed by Goro Miyazaki, released by Studio Ghibli back in 2011. Very good film. The great about it, I think it had mature storytelling with a complex premise. The good, again, was the art of and animation, especially that library. That was a world within itself. And the bad, there's an insinuation of incest here. How the characters deal with that may or may not rub you the wrong way. I think the resolution, in the end, they deal with it in a satisfying way. A little bit of a cop out, maybe, but nothing really ugly about it, in my opinion. 85 is an old movie from 1968, the first movie directed by the great Isao Takahata. I'm a big fan of his. I think every movie of his, except for maybe one, is in my list. And this is called Horus, Prince of the Sun by Studio Toei. Fundamentally important movie in the history of Japanese animation, and Studio Ghibli in particular. The art style that was developed here, they continue to explore throughout its, the existence of the studio. Uh, it's a, uh an easy 3.5 out of 5 for me. So this is an early look at the work of the master. The good is the ideological substance of the movie, which comes not only from its mythological background, but also both Takahata and Miyazaki um, imbued this film with what they were going through at the time, at the time, in terms of how artists were being treated by the studio, and they. Uh, Part of this movie reflects their stand on the lack of strength of unions and guilds in general, and the student movement of the time. The artwork here we should say is influenced by the historical context. So this is a movie of its time. Uh, Again, it laid the foundation of what both Miyazaki and Takahata were going to do with Ghibli over the decades. But it also reflects the art style of the style, and it may be an issue for some people. And the songs are bad. I think they were bad back then, and they haven't aged any better. Number 84 is another movie from Goro Miyazaki, Tales from Earthsea. This was his first movie released by Studio Ghibli in 2006. I really like this film. Another easy 3.5 out of 5 for me. The great about it is it has a beautifully rendered world. I think it has a good storyline. The bad, it always rubbed me the wrong way that this was a sparsely populated world. There's like three people in this movie. I'm exaggerating, of course, but it feels like the whole world is pretty empty in general. The ugly, nothing of note for me, but you gotta be aware this movie was brutalized by the critics and disliked by the author of the source material. Whether it's her right uh, for the author of the original novel not to like the movie, but whether Reception by the critics was fair or not. I don't know. I think maybe the last name and the lineage of the director influenced their expectations. I think this is a really, really good movie, and really underrated, at least by critics. Number 83 from Mamoru Hosoda, The Boy and the Beast, released by Studio Chizu back in 2015. 3.5 out of 5 for me. The great here are the characters. The good is the fast-paced plot. The bad, maybe too lighthearted. Like the stakes never felt like they were really high, in my opinion, but nothing ugly of note. Number 82, The Ghost in the Shell, the new movie. This was a 2015 release, directed by Kazuchika Kise and Kazuya Nomura. It was released by Studio IG, and another very good movie in my opinion. The great here are the action sequences. The good, it has a thick plot that ties up the whole Arise arc. I liked the Arise arc, and I really like how everything came together here. The bad, for me, was the character design and the design of the characters. I'm so used to the original Ghost in the Shell movie and the original series, the two first TV series, that anything that departs from that is hard for me to handle. So it's more my own issue than anything else. And the ugly is, again, something that may not be relevant for you at all, but for me, nothing will match the original. So any Ghost in the Shell, any new entry in that franchise will always have that against it for me. And finally, number 81, last entry for this week, is also an older movie from 1978 called Ringing Bell, directed by Masami Hata from Studio Sanrio. 3.5 for me. I've made it a point not to go in depth regarding the plot and the premise of these movies. Sometimes I don't even mention the what the plot is about. But this movie in particular, the less you know about it coming in, the better the experience, the more you'll get out of the experience when you watch it. So that's my 2 cents. Be aware of that. It's going to be unavailable that I give a few hints about the nature of the movie on my next slide. But if you want to, I'm not going to go into any spoiler, but if you want to go even more naive into the movie or naively, then you may want to even skip the next slide. So the great it does its premise justice. And my very first movie in this list for me, number 100, was The Fox and the Hound. And when I did the bad and the ugly about it, I said that it refused to go to truly dark places in terms of its plot and characters. And this movie, in a sense, it has a similar plot to The Fox and the Hound. The Fox and the Hound was about how sometimes we betray our own nature because of the expectations of society and how we want to conform to those expectations. And that leads us to betray our nature and sometimes our relationships. And this movie is also about betraying your own nature, but this time it's because of life experiences and trauma and the influence of what that some relationships can have on you. So the Fox and the Hound, in a sense, was society over nature, uh, and here in Ringing Bell, it's about relationships over nature. The good, we have a significant change in art style uh, in this movie at different points that reflects the psychological change the characters are going through. Uh, the bad, it was somewhat limited by its budget, and you can tell at times, I think. And the ugly are the songs, which are, again, I'm not a big fan of songs in the middle of movies, and these songs are not even good. But if you take a look at this slide and you take a look at that slide, this looks almost like a Disney, not even like a Disney movie. It looks like a Disney short cartoon, those 8-minute cartoons from the 40s and 50s with the cute forest animals and the cute main character. But don't let that fool you. That's not. I'm not gonna say that's not representative of the film, because in a sense it is. But I'm going to say that it's not representative of what the whole movie is, or the movie as a whole, because this movie goes to some places that most movies don't dare. Highly, highly recommended. That's it for this week. Next week we'll be talking about movies number 80 to number 71. See you guys on the next episode. I hope you have a great week, and as usual, thank you for your time.